Good morning, evening, or afternoon. Today we're going to be going over debugging. Now, this is a concept not often taught in schools or courses because it's very boring and super simple, and usually you'll figure it out on the job. But going into a job, it is probably the most important skill you can have because the benefits are not just finding bugs and getting rid of them, but it is also figuring out how somebody else's code works. Now, if you know anything about the tech job field, you're not going to write most of the code you're going to work with. You're going to be put into a job, say you work at, I don't know, a popsicle stand or whatever, and they have this system built for online orders. Somebody else has developed this system, not you. So you don't know how it works. Debugging will help you step through the program and understand how each part works as you come across it. So that's what I'm going to be teaching you today. This tutorial is for beginners and experts. Let's jump right in. So you can see I've got a web calculator application. It's super simple. It's using the MVC model, and it is not mine. I've linked the repo that I got this from in the description. Shout out to the author, who is not me. But what I'm going to be doing is using this to demonstrate debugging. It's a very straightforward application. You can run it in debug mode. Visual Studio, which is the IDE I'm using for this demo, has this enabled by default. You either press F5 or click the button I just clicked, and it will launch a command prompt, and the browser window will pop up in just a few seconds. And here is the application, very straightforward. It's a web-based calculator, has the rules, basically telling you this follows order of operation. You can hit calculate. You can run any calculation you want. 2 plus 2 is 4. But yeah, that's how it works. And you see the button says calculate and all that jazz. And this program is not very long. But what we're going to be doing for demo is figuring out how this calculate button works. So first off, let's talk about breakpoints. What is a breakpoint? It's a point in the code that breaks. Very simple. It doesn't actually break the code. It more like pauses, but it is a break in your code that breaks execution, essentially, is what the break means. So if you hover into this left column, you'll see little white circles come up, and if you click, the circle turns red and highlights the adjacent line, which isn't very big, but if I do it here, you'll see that it highlights the whole line. Now, while the code is executing in debug mode, if you hit this method, it's going to break the code essentially. So let me demonstrate this with 1 plus 3 times 4. Boom. We don't see our output, we just see the breakpoint get hit. And when the breakpoint is hit, we can hit F10 to step over. Now what step over is it just means go to the next line and execute the previous line. This line has not executed yet, but now we can hover and see string message. The value of it live during runtime is blank. We can hover here, it's null, it hasn't been set yet. F10, it executes, and this now becomes string empty. So that's how step over works. And you can just step over, check out all your code, figure out what the variables are set to. Very straightforward. And if you don't want to go back into your code to find out what a variable is, you can add a watch to it. So right click, hit add watch, and it is added to the watches down here. You can see it's blank, and I'll show you a little more about that in just a minute. But we're stepping through, and we get to a line that has a method on it. And we want to figure out what this method does because this isn't our code, right? You don't know what this does. You didn't make the method. So you can press F11 to step into the method and step through it. Watch it during execution. Same concept. Step over. You can see things happen as they are occurring live. And we can even hover I, or not that, but I is 0 right now. And yeah, we can step through this method. And if you want to exit the method, do Shift F11. That's called step out. You step out of the method and enter back to where you were. And this is where watches really do come in handy, because if you're going through a bunch of methods that are nested together, stepping into each of them, you don't want to have to navigate back to your previous spot to find the variables that you're supposed to be watching. So that's where watches come in. And let me take you down into a loop and show you the concept of the cursor, which is this yellow arrow to the side that keeps track of where we are. So I'm going to F10, and it skips the if because our expression doesn't contain parentheses, right? So what we could do is take this cursor all the way back up to the condition, and this is start MP expression. So we can find that in our watches. I've already put it down there. And you can actually change these variables during runtime. It's pretty awesome because now we can step into this condition and it's right. So now we can enter this loop. So I wanted to enter this loop to give you a fair word of warning that usually when you're working with loops, you have to be careful moving this cursor because the cursor does not care about the variables in between where you're moving from to. So what I'm saying is if your variables change in between and your execution line runs over that again, it's just going to change it. So say you have this decrement. It won't happen in this loop because when you pull back to the top of a loop, it reinitializes I. Say you have this decrement, but this variable decrements and you run back over it, well, it's going to decrement again. Visual Studio is not intelligent to know that you just moved the cursor. It's just thinking you're executing it again, going back through the loop. So fair word of warning, be careful using this cursor as it can create some unexpected results. And that is the basics of debugging. The only other thing I would like to show you is the call stack. So what we're going to do is throw an error inside of Visual Studio on purpose to show you the call stack. So I'm going to go in and comment out this catch, Control KC, shortcut there. We're going to Control KC. There will be a Control KC. Boom. Okay. Now we took away the error handling so that we can see the error and I can demonstrate the call stack. What we're going to do is hot reload, which is this fireball up at the top. You can do Alt F10. I just like clicking it. Be very careful using hot reload for reasons like this. Edits were made which cannot be compiled. Changes won't be applied until the compile errors are fixed. So in this case, we have to stop the execution and rerun it. Be sure to close this as that's the cache, but rerun it. So we have to rerun it. And we'll rerun it, we'll rerun it and make sure that our error appears. Did I create the error? Yes, I did. Okay. So we're going to add parentheses to this so we can throw our error. And now we can just continue. We'll get our error. Boom. Index out of range. You can hit show call stack. And now in bigger programs, this is extremely useful because you can go down and see in this bottom section, let me make it bigger, where your code was called from. So say there's this method that it originated from that you're seeing on the screen right now that threw the error. You could backtrack and see from where it's called. See this calculate, it's on a whole other page, home controller, that probably has to do with the button. But it's called here. So you can check out anything around it and even create breakpoints for when you run again to catch the code and examine parts of the code that you probably wouldn't have gotten to before. And that's about all there is to the basics of debugging. This will get you through 98% of problems you're going to encounter as a developer. You can find bugs, you can enter a new job and confidently figure out your softwares. It's very important to know how to debug. So I highly recommend you go either to GitHub or to your own projects and practice debugging. Figure out someone else's code from GitHub or find bugs in your own code using these concepts because I'm telling you, they will serve you more than you know in your development career. I hope you found a lot of value in today's video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe because I will be posting more concepts that you'll typically find on the job that aren't taught in courses, and coding concepts as well. Until next time, I hope you have a great day.